Emma was no stranger to the hustle and bustle of airports. For over 8 years, she had worked as a flight attendant, navigating crowded terminals, calming nervous travelers, and ensuring smooth flights for thousands of passengers. She prided herself on her professionalism and ability to handle any situation with grace. To her colleagues, Emma was the go-to person when things got chaotic. But even the most experienced professionals can make mistakes, and on this particular day, Emma's world would change forever. It was an ordinary morning at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York. The sun peeked through the large, glass windows of Terminal 4, casting soft golden light onto the rows of travelers waiting to board their flights. Emma stood near the boarding gate, clipboard in hand, scanning tickets and greeting passengers with her signature warm smile. Today's flight was bound for London Heathrow, one of the busiest routes in the airline's network. Business people, families, and tourists filed past her, each carrying their own hopes and plans for the journey ahead. As the line dwindled, Emma noticed a young woman approaching the gate counter. Her name was Sarah, though Emma didn't know that yet. Sarah looked tired but determined, balancing a heavy tote bag slung across her shoulder while clutching a laptop case in one hand and her passport in the other. Her face showed traces of stress, but there was also excitement in her eyes, a mix of emotions that often came with big life events. Little did Emma know, Sarah's trip wasn't just another vacation, it was tied to something far more important. When Sarah handed over her passport, Emma took it without much thought. It was part of her routine to check documents quickly and efficiently before allowing passengers to proceed. Flipping open the booklet, Emma scanned the pages for the usual details. Name, photo expiration date. Everything seemed fine until she stumbled upon an old visa tucked between 2 inner pages. The visa was clearly expired, its edges slightly worn from age. In her mind, Emma saw it as unnecessary clutter, a remnant of past travels that could confuse immigration officers or cause delays during customs checks. Without pausing to think, Emma made a decision. She grabbed the corner of the page containing the visa and tore it out cleanly, intending to discard what she assumed was useless information. "This shouldn't be here," she muttered under her breath, already moving on to the next passenger. What she didn't realize, however, was the magnitude of her action, or the immediate reaction it would provoke. The sound of tearing paper caught Sarah's attention, and her expression shifted instantly. Her eyes widened in horror and her hands flew to cover her mouth. "No!" she gasped, her voice trembling. "What did you just do?" Emma froze, the torn piece of paper still clutched in her fingers. Confusion washed over her as she looked up at Sarah, whose face had turned pale. Passengers nearby turned their heads, curious about the sudden commotion. "Why did you tear that?" Sarah demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. Her voice cracked with emotion, drawing even more attention from those around them. Emma stammered, unsure how to respond. I thought it was old. I didn't mean to," she began, but her words trailed off as she realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a random scrap of paper. It was part of Sarah's official passport, a document filled with legal significance. Sarah stepped closer, her hands shaking as she reached for the damaged booklet. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she said, her tone rising. "That visa is proof of my residency status. Without it, I won't be allowed into the UK." Emma felt her stomach drop. The room seemed to grow quieter, the hum of conversations fading into the background as everyone focused on the unfolding drama. Other passengers exchanged uneasy glances, some whispering among themselves about what they had witnessed. For Sarah, this trip wasn't optional. It was crucial. She had spent months preparing for a job interview in London, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that could shape her future. Every detail of her visit had been meticulously planned, from accommodation, arrangements to transportation logistics. And now, because of Emma's hasty decision, everything was at risk. The weight of the moment pressed down on both women, though in very different ways. Emma tried to salvage the situation, offering profuse apologies and promising to find a solution. "We'll figure this out," she assured Sarah, though her voice lacked conviction. Deep down, she knew the damage was done. Even if replacements or corrections were possible, they would require time Sarah didn't have. The flight was scheduled to depart within the hour, and missing it meant losing not only the chance to attend the interview, but also jeopardizing her career prospects entirely. As ground staff were summoned to address the issue, tension hung thick in the air. Passengers continued to board reluctantly, many glancing back at the scene with expressions of sympathy or disapproval. Some muttered comments about Emma's carelessness, while others simply shook their heads in disbelief. Meanwhile, the captain announced over the intercom that there would be a slight delay due to unforeseen circumstances, a vague explanation that left everyone guessing. For Emma, the minutes dragged by like hours. Standing beside Sarah as officials examined the damaged passport, she replayed the incident in her mind, questioning how she could have acted so recklessly. Was it fatigue, overconfidence, or simply a lapse in judgment? Whatever the reason, the consequences were undeniable. As the reality of the situation sank in, Emma couldn't help but wonder if this mistake would cost her more than just her pride. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a chain of events that would test her resilience, force her to confront her flaws, and ultimately lead her toward redemption. But for now, all she could do was stand there, watching as Sarah fought back tears and bracing herself for whatever came next. The boarding gate area, once bustling with the usual pre-flight energy, had transformed into a tense and uneasy scene. Passengers who moments earlier were focused on finding their seats or stowing carry-on bags now found themselves distracted by the unfolding drama. Conversations halted, heads turned, and eyes locked onto Emma and Sarah as the gravity of the situation became clear. The air seemed heavier, charged with a mix of confusion, frustration, and disbelief. Sarah clutched her damaged passport tightly in her hands, her knuckles white from the pressure. Tears streamed down her cheeks, leaving streaks on her flushed face. She looked at Emma with a mixture of anger and desperation, her voice trembling as she spoke. "You don't understand," she said, her words barely audible over the hum of the terminal. "That visa isn't just some random piece of paper. It's proof of my residency status in the UK. Without it, I can't enter the country. Do you know what this means for me?" Emma stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to say something, anything, to make things right. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she could only nod weakly, her mind racing to process the magnitude of her mistake. For years, she had prided herself on being meticulous and professional, yet here she was, standing in the middle of an airport disaster entirely of her own making. The weight of guilt pressed down on her like a lead blanket. Ground staff arrived shortly after the commotion began, summoned by Emma's supervisor who had been monitoring the situation from afar. They ushered Sarah and Emma away from the crowded boarding area to a quieter corner near the gate counter. Passengers watched silently as they walked past, some shaking their heads in disapproval, others whispering among themselves about what might happen next. One elderly man muttered under his breath, "This is why you shouldn't rush these things." In the quieter space, Sarah explained her predicament to the ground staff with growing agitation. Her trip to London wasn't optional. It was tied to a critical job interview that could determine the course of her career. She had spent months preparing for this opportunity, pouring countless hours into perfecting her resume, practicing interview questions, and coordinating logistics. Everything hinged on her ability to arrive on time and present herself as a qualified candidate. "I can't miss this flight," Sarah pleaded, her voice cracking under the strain of emotion. "If I do, I'll lose the chance to attend the interview, and without that I won't get the job. This is my future we're talking about." Her words hung in the air, heavy with urgency and despair. The ground staff exchanged concerned glances, clearly aware of the stakes involved. One of the officials carefully examined the damaged passport, turning it over in his hands as if searching for a solution. After several tense moments, he sighed deeply and looked up at Sarah. "Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do here," he said gently but firmly. "The torn page compromises the integrity of your travel document. You'll need to contact your embassy or consulate to resolve this issue properly. Sarah's shoulders slumped as the reality of the situation sank in. Contacting her embassy meant delays, possibly days or even weeks, and there was no guarantee they could expedite the process in time for her interview. Every second counted, and every moment wasted felt like another nail in the coffin of her dreams. As the conversation continued, Emma hovered nearby, feeling both helpless and ashamed. She tried to interject occasionally, offering suggestions or apologizing profusely, but her attempts fell flat. "I'm so sorry," she repeated, her voice filled with genuine remorse. "I didn't mean to cause this much trouble. Can we find a way to fix it? Please let me help." But her words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. Sarah finally turned to face Emma, her tear-streaked face hardening with resolve. "Help?" she snapped, her tone sharp and cutting. "You've already done enough helping. What I need now is for someone to figure out how to undo this mess, not more empty apologies." Her words struck Emma like a slap, leaving her momentarily speechless. She realized then that no amount of apologizing could erase the damage she had caused. Meanwhile, the delay rippled through the terminal, affecting not only Sarah and Emma, but also the other passengers waiting to board the flight. The captain announced another update over the intercom, explaining that departure would be postponed further due to unforeseen circumstances. Groans of frustration echoed throughout the cabin as travelers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, checking their watches and scrolling through their phones for updates. Back at the gate counter, tensions escalated further when Emma's supervisor arrived on the scene. A tall, stern-looking man in his 50s, he carried an air of authority that commanded attention. He listened intently as the ground staff briefed him on the situation, his expression growing increasingly grave with each passing detail. When he finally turned to Emma, his gaze was piercing, filled with disappointment and disbelief. "What were you thinking?" he asked, his voice low but firm. "You're supposed to assist passengers, not create problems for them. Tearing up someone's passport? That's beyond unprofessional, it's reckless." Emma flinched at his words, feeling the sting of judgment from someone she respected deeply. She opened her mouth to defend herself but quickly closed it again, knowing there was no excuse for her actions. I wasn't thinking," she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw the expired visa and assumed it was unnecessary. I thought I was helping." Her explanation trailed off, sounding feeble even to her own ears. Her supervisor shook his head slowly, his lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't just about one passenger," he continued. "It's about trust. Trust in our team, trust in our processes, and trust in our ability to handle situations responsibly. What you've done today undermines all of that." His words hit Emma like a punch to the gut, leaving her feeling smaller than ever before. As the minutes ticked by, the situation grew increasingly dire. Ground staff informed Sarah that boarding would resume shortly, but she refused to cooperate until a resolution was reached. "I'm not getting on that plane unless you assure me this will be fixed," she declared, her voice steady despite the tears still streaming down her face. Her determination earned nods of approval from bystanders, many of whom sympathized with her plight. Emma watched silently as the standoff unfolded, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Would Sarah refuse to board altogether? Would the airline face backlash from passengers or media coverage of the incident? And most importantly, what would happen to her own career? As these questions swirled in her head, she couldn't shake the sinking feeling that her life and livelihood might never be the same again. By the time the ground staff managed to calm Sarah down and convince her to board the flight temporarily, the atmosphere remained charged with tension. Passengers filed onto the plane reluctantly, casting wary glances at Emma as they passed. Some offered sympathetic smiles, while others avoided eye contact altogether. The once familiar routine of boarding now felt alien to Emma, a stark reminder of how quickly everything could unravel. As the last passenger disappeared down the jet bridge, Emma lingered behind, her thoughts consumed by regret and fear. She knew this incident wouldn't end here. It was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey toward accountability and redemption. But for now, all she could do was wait, hoping against hope that somehow things might work out for the better. The flight to London eventually departed, though not without lingering tension. Passengers settled into their seats, some still whispering about the incident at the gate, while others tried to distract themselves with in-flight entertainment or snacks. For Emma, however, there was no escape from the weight of what had happened. As the plane soared above the clouds, she sat quietly in the galley, staring blankly at the floor. Her hands trembled slightly as she replayed every detail of the confrontation with Sarah. The tears, the accusations, the sheer helplessness she felt when confronted with the enormity of her mistake. Back on the ground, things were far from resolved. After the flight took off, Emma's supervisor escorted her to a small office near the terminal. The room was sterile and cold, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the walls. A clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second amplifying Emma's anxiety. Sitting across from two senior airline officials, she braced herself for the inevitable questions and consequences that awaited her. What exactly happened out there? One of the officials asked, his tone clipped but professional. He leaned forward slightly, pen poised over a notepad as he waited for her response. Emma swallowed hard, forcing herself to recount the events step by step. She explained how she noticed the expired visa in Sarah's passport, mistaking it for unnecessary clutter, and acted impulsively without considering the implications. "I thought I was helping," she said softly, her voice tinged with desperation. "I didn't realize it was so important." The second official, a woman with sharp features and an even sharper gaze, interjected. "Helping? Tearing up someone's passport is hardly helpful. This isn't just a minor oversight, it's a violation of protocol and trust." Her words cut deep, leaving Emma feeling exposed and vulnerable. She nodded slowly, unable to argue. They were right. There was no justification for what she had done. As the meeting continued, the officials reviewed security footage of the incident, confirming Emma's actions frame by frame. Watching the video played back on a small monitor made everything feel surreal. There she was on screen, calm and composed one moment, then suddenly tearing the page with startling finality. Seeing herself commit such a reckless act brought fresh waves of shame crashing over her. How could she have been so careless? Meanwhile, back on the plane, Sarah wrestled with her own emotions. Though she had reluctantly boarded the flight after assurances from the ground staff that they would assist her upon arrival in London, her mind remained consumed by worry. Would immigration authorities accept her damaged passport? What if they denied her entry altogether? These questions swirled endlessly in her head, making it impossible to relax or focus on anything else. When the plane landed at Heathrow Airport several hours later, Sarah's fears came true almost immediately. During customs checks, an officer flagged her passport due to the torn page, triggering additional scrutiny. She was pulled aside for questioning, subjected to a barrage of inquiries about her travel history and purpose of visit. Each question felt like another blow, chipping away at her confidence and patience. "I'm here for a job interview," Sarah explained repeatedly, her voice strained from exhaustion. "This wasn't my fault. The flight attendant tore it accidentally." But her explanations fell on skeptical ears. Without the original visa page intact, verifying her residency status became nearly impossible. Eventually, she was allowed to enter the country temporarily, pending further investigation, but the process cost her valuable time, and peace of mind. News of the incident traveled quickly within the airline company. By the time Emma returned from her shift later that evening, rumors had already spread among her colleagues. Some expressed sympathy, acknowledging that mistakes happened to everyone, while others criticized her actions harshly, calling them unforgivable and reckless. Avoiding eye contact, Emma retreated to the locker room to collect her belongings, her movements slow and deliberate, as if trying to delay the inevitable fallout. Her supervisor called her into his office once more before she left for the day. Closing the door behind him, he delivered the news Emma had been dreading. Upper management had decided to terminate her employment effective immediately. "We can't afford to overlook something like this," he said gravely. "It's not just about you. It's about maintaining the integrity of our brand and ensuring passenger safety and satisfaction." Emma listened silently, nodding numbly as the reality of her situation sank in. 8 years of dedication reduced to nothing in the span of a single day. Her career, her identity, her sense of purpose, all shattered because of one impulsive decision. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought to keep them at bay, unwilling to appear weak in front of her boss. "You'll need to clear out your locker and return your uniform by tomorrow," he added, his tone softening slightly. "I'm sorry it had to come to this, Emma. You've always been a good employee, but this crosses a line we can't ignore." Leaving the office, Emma walked through the terminal like a ghost, disconnected from the world around her. Colleagues who once greeted her warmly now avoided her gaze, unsure whether to offer comfort or condemnation. When she reached the locker room, she sat down heavily on the bench, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Gone was the confident, capable woman who thrived under pressure. In her place stood someone broken and defeated, grappling with the enormity of her mistake. That night, alone in her apartment, Emma struggled to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, images of Sarah's tear-streaked face flashed before her, accompanied by the sound of ripping paper echoing in her mind. Guilt gnawed at her relentlessly, refusing to let her rest. Desperate for some semblance of closure, she decided to reach out to Sarah directly. Using social media, Emma tracked down Sarah's profile and sent a private message. "Hi, Sarah," she began hesitantly. "I know there's nothing I can say to undo what happened, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help, whether it's covering costs related to fixing your passport or simply listening to how you're feeling. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I hope someday you'll be able to forgive me." To Emma's surprise, Sarah responded within hours. Her reply was brief, but unexpectedly compassionate. "Thank you for reaching out," she wrote. "I appreciate your apology, and yes, I do forgive you. Mistakes happen, but I hope you learn from this experience. We all deserve second chances." Reading those words brought a mixture of relief and determination to Emma. Relief because Sarah's forgiveness lifted some of the burden weighing her down, and determination because she realized this moment could serve as a turning point, a chance to grow and rebuild her life. In the days that followed, Emma threw herself into self-reflection and learning. She enrolled in conflict resolution workshops, determined to improve her decision-making skills and better understand the impact of her actions on others. She also volunteered at a local community center that assisted travelers dealing with bureaucratic challenges, using her knowledge and experience to guide those in need. Slowly but surely, she began piecing together fragments of her shattered confidence, vowing never to let one mistake define her forever. Though the road ahead promised to be long and difficult, Emma found solace in knowing she hadn't lost everything. She still had the opportunity to make amends, not just with Sarah, but with herself. And perhaps in time she might even find a way back to the career she loved. For now, though, all she could do was take it one step at a time, holding on to hope that redemption was possible, even after the darkest of days. The days following Emma's termination were among the hardest she had ever faced. Losing her job wasn't just about financial strain, it was a blow to her identity, her sense of purpose, and her pride. For 8 years, being a flight attendant had defined who she was. She loved the camaraderie with her colleagues, the thrill of traveling to new places, and the satisfaction of helping passengers navigate their journeys. Now, all of that was gone, replaced by an overwhelming emptiness. Emma spent the first few days after her firing in a daze, barely leaving her apartment. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, texts from friends checking in, emails from recruiters advertising other jobs, and even messages from former co-workers expressing sympathy or curiosity about what had happened. But Emma couldn't bring herself to respond. She felt too ashamed, too humiliated to face anyone. Instead, she curled up on her couch, staring at the walls as tears streamed down her face. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sarah's tearful expression and heard the gasps of shock from passengers at the gate. Those moments replayed endlessly in her mind, haunting her like a ghost she couldn't escape. As the reality of unemployment set in, practical concerns began to weigh heavily on Emma. Bills piled up, rent loomed large, and the prospect of finding another job seemed daunting. Airlines were notoriously competitive employers, and Emma knew her dismissal would raise red flags during background checks. Who would hire someone fired for tearing up a passenger's passport? The thought made her stomach churn. She started scouring online job boards, applying for positions outside the aviation industry, but rejection emails poured in faster than interviews. Each one felt like a fresh wound, reminding her of how much her life had changed. Meanwhile, Sarah landed in London and faced challenges of her own. Though immigration authorities allowed her to enter the country temporarily, the damage to her passport caused significant delays. At Heathrow Airport, she spent hours answering questions about her residency status and providing additional documentation to prove her eligibility. By the time she finally cleared customs, exhaustion had overtaken her excitement. The stress of the ordeal left her drained both physically and emotionally. Still determined to make the most of her trip, Sarah pushed forward. She checked into her hotel, unpacked her belongings, and prepared for the job interview scheduled for the next day. However, the incident continued to cast a shadow over her experience. During the interview, she found it difficult to focus, distracted by lingering anxiety about whether her damaged passport might cause further complications. Despite her best efforts, she left the meeting uncertain about her performance. Would they see her as reliable if they knew about the trouble she'd encountered upon arrival? Back home, Emma wrestled with guilt and regret. Knowing that Sarah's dreams could be jeopardized because of her mistake only deepened her despair. One evening, unable to sleep, she decided to take action. She reached out to Sarah again via social media, this time offering more than just words of apology. "Sarah," she wrote, "I know my actions have caused you so much stress and inconvenience. Please let me help fix this. I'll cover any costs related to replacing your passport or dealing with legal issues. It's the least I can do." Her surprise, Sarah responded promptly. Her tone remained kind but firm. "Thank you for reaching out again," she replied. "I appreciate your offer, but honestly, what I need most right now is peace of mind. I don't want to dwell on this anymore. It's already caused enough disruption. Let's both move forward and learn from this experience." Her message ended with a simple yet powerful statement. Mistakes happen, but growth comes from how we handle them. Reading Sarah's response brought a mix of emotions to Emma. On one hand, she felt grateful for Sarah's grace and understanding. On the other, she realized the burden of accountability rested squarely on her shoulders. If she truly wanted to make amends, not just to Sarah but to herself, she needed to take responsibility for her actions and work toward meaningful change. Determined to turn her life around, Emma threw herself into self-improvement. She enrolled in workshops focused on conflict resolution, communication skills, and customer service excellence. These courses taught her valuable lessons about patience, empathy, and the importance of thinking before acting. In group discussions, she shared her story openly, using her experience as a cautionary tale for others. To her relief, many participants expressed admiration for her willingness to confront her mistakes head-on. In addition to formal training, Emma began volunteering at a local community center that assisted travelers navigating visa applications, passport renewals, and other bureaucratic hurdles. Here she found solace in helping others avoid the same pitfalls she had created. Whether guiding someone through complex paperwork or simply offering reassurance during stressful moments, Emma discovered a renewed sense of purpose. Her colleagues at the center praised her dedication, noting how her personal experiences added depth and authenticity to her guidance. Despite these positive steps, rebuilding trust within the airline industry proved far more challenging. When Emma applied for positions at smaller regional carriers, she included a candid explanation of her past mistake in every cover letter. Some companies rejected her outright, unwilling to take a chance on someone with such a controversial history. Others invited her to interview, where she faced tough questions about accountability and professionalism. One particularly memorable interview stood out. Sitting across from two hiring managers, Emma recounted the incident in detail, emphasizing not only her error but also the lessons she had learned since then. "I understand why you might hesitate to hire me," she admitted, her voice steady despite her nerves. "But I want you to know that I've worked hard to grow from this experience. I'm committed to ensuring something like this never happens again." The managers exchanged thoughtful glances before one of them spoke. "We value honesty and accountability," he said. "Your willingness to acknowledge your mistake and your efforts to improve is impressive. We'll be in touch soon." Weeks later, Emma received an email offering her a position as a flight attendant with a small regional airline. Overjoyed yet cautious, she accepted the role, vowing to approach her new job with humility and determination. On her first day back in uniform, she greeted passengers with extra care, double-checking every document and ensuring no detail went overlooked. Though nervous, she reminded herself that second chances were rare and worth fighting for. As months passed, Emma rebuilt her reputation one flight at a time. Passengers complimented her attentiveness, and colleagues praised her professionalism. Slowly but surely, she regained confidence in herself and her abilities. Meanwhile, Sarah successfully resolved her passport issue and rebooked her trip to London. Though the delay had initially cost her the original job opportunity, she remained optimistic about her future, viewing the setback as a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. Years later, fate brought Emma and Sarah together again, at an awards ceremony honoring acts of kindness and resilience in unexpected places. Recognizing each other across the room, they shared a warm hug, acknowledging how one fateful mistake had ultimately led to redemption for both of them. For Emma, it was proof that growth often arises from failure. For Sarah, it was a reminder that forgiveness can heal wounds and inspire hope. Together, they celebrated not just their achievements, but the journey that had transformed them both. Emma's journey toward redemption wasn't an easy one, but it was marked by small victories that slowly began to rebuild her confidence. After landing the job with the regional airline, she approached each day with a renewed sense of purpose. Gone was the complacency she once felt after years of experience. Instead, she embraced every task, no matter how mundane, as an opportunity to prove herself again. From assisting elderly passengers with their luggage to ensuring families were seated together, Emma poured her heart into her work, determined to earn back the trust she had lost. Her colleagues noticed the change almost immediately. "You're different," one of them remarked during a break between flights. "Not just better, you seem more aware, like you really see people now." Emma smiled at the comment, knowing it was true. The incident with Sarah had taught her a valuable lesson about the ripple effects of her actions. What might seem like a minor decision to her could have life-altering consequences for someone else. This realization fueled her commitment to being present and attentive in every interaction. Despite her progress, there were still moments when doubt crept in. Late at night, lying awake in her bed, Emma would replay the events at JFK Airport over and over in her mind. She questioned whether she deserved this second chance, or if she was simply fooling herself into thinking she could move on. These thoughts weighed heavily on her, but they also pushed her to keep improving. She reminded herself daily that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about learning from it and becoming a better version of herself. One of the most transformative aspects of Emma's recovery came through her volunteer work at the community center. Helping travelers navigate complex visa applications and passport renewals gave her a deeper understanding of the challenges people faced when traveling internationally. Many of the individuals she assisted shared stories of missed opportunities due to bureaucratic errors or misunderstandings, further reinforcing the importance of precision and care in handling travel documents. Each success story she contributed to brought her a little closer to forgiving herself for her own mistake. During one particularly memorable session, Emma met a young man named Daniel who was struggling to obtain a student visa for Canada. His application had been rejected twice already, leaving him frustrated and disheartened. As Emma reviewed his paperwork, she noticed several inconsistencies in the forms he had submitted. Instead of dismissing his case as hopeless, she sat down with him and walked him through the process step by step, explaining how to correct the errors and avoid similar issues in the future. By the end of their meeting, Daniel looked visibly relieved. "Thank you so much," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I didn't think anyone would take the time to help me like this." Emma nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It was moments like these that reminded her why she had chosen this path, to make a positive impact no matter how small. As months turned into years, Emma continued to grow both personally and professionally. Her dedication earned her recognition within the airline industry, and she was eventually promoted to a leadership role overseeing onboard staff training programs. In this position, she used her experience to teach new hires the importance of empathy, accountability, and attention to detail. During orientation sessions, she openly shared her story, emphasizing that even seasoned professionals could make mistakes, and that owning up to those mistakes was key to moving forward. "Every passenger has a story," she told trainees during one session. "They're not just names on a manifest. They're real people with hopes, dreams, and challenges. Our job is to support them, not add to their burdens. If we approach our work with that mindset, we'll always do right by them." Though her career flourished, Emma never forgot Sarah, the woman whose life she had inadvertently disrupted. She often wondered how Sarah was doing, hoping against hope that she had found success despite the setback caused by the damaged passport. Occasionally, Emma considered reaching out again, but she hesitated, unsure whether Sarah would welcome further contact. After all, hadn't she already forgiven Emma? Wasn't it time to let go? Then, unexpectedly, fate intervened. One evening, while scrolling through social media, Emma stumbled upon a post from Sarah announcing her acceptance into a prestigious graduate program in London. The caption read, "Dreams come true, even when life throws obstacles your way. Thank you to everyone who supported me along this journey." Accompanying the message was a photo of Sarah standing outside a university building, beaming with pride. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she stared at the image. Against all odds, Sarah had persevered, turning what could have been a devastating setback into a stepping stone toward achieving her goals. Inspired by Sarah's resilience, Emma decided to send one final message. "Congratulations on your incredible achievement," she wrote. "I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished. You inspire me to keep pushing forward no matter what challenges arise." Sarah responded quickly, her reply filled with warmth and encouragement. "Thank you, Emma," she wrote. "Your apology meant a lot to me, and I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Remember, we all make mistakes. It's what we learn from them that defines us. Keep shining." Their exchange marked a turning point for Emma. For so long, she had carried the weight of guilt and shame, convinced that her mistake defined her. But Sarah's words reminded her that growth comes from embracing imperfection and striving to do better. With this newfound perspective, Emma resolved to continue spreading kindness and positivity wherever she went. In addition to her professional achievements, Emma also reconnected with old friends and family members she had distanced herself from during her darkest days. Their unwavering support reminded her that she wasn't alone, that everyone makes missteps and what truly matters is how we rise afterward. Together, they celebrated milestones big and small, from promotions and awards to quiet evenings spent, sharing laughter and memories. Years later, Emma stood on stage at a conference dedicated to fostering resilience and compassion in high-pressure environments. As she delivered her keynote speech, she reflected on the long road she had traveled since that fateful day at JFK Airport. "Redemption isn't about forgetting the past," she told the audience. "It's about facing it head-on, learning from it, and using those lessons to create something meaningful. My mistake changed my life, but it also gave me the chance to become someone I'm proud of." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Emma barely heard it. Her focus remained on the faces in the crowd, many of whom nodded in agreement or wiped away tears. Among them sat Sarah, who had flown in specially to attend the event. When their eyes met, Emma felt a surge of gratitude wash over her. They had both come so far, overcoming adversity in their own ways, and now stood as living proof that forgiveness and resilience can lead to extraordinary transformation. For Emma, this moment symbolized closure, not just of her journey toward redemption, but of the bond she had formed with Sarah. Though strangers at first, their lives had intertwined in ways neither could have predicted. What began as a disastrous encounter had blossomed into a powerful reminder of humanity's capacity for growth, understanding, and connection. And as Emma stepped off the stage to embrace Sarah in a heartfelt hug, she knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the hardest lessons lead to the greatest rewards. Years had passed since the incident at JFK Airport, but its impact lingered in profound ways for both Emma and Sarah. What started as a moment of recklessness and regret transformed into a story of redemption, resilience, and unexpected friendship. Neither woman could have predicted how their lives would intertwine, or the lessons they would learn from one another. But now, standing together at an award ceremony celebrating acts of kindness and personal growth, they realized that their journey had come full circle. The event took place in a grand ballroom adorned with twinkling lights and elegant floral arrangements. Guests mingled over hors d'oeuvres, exchanging stories of triumph and perseverance. For Emma, being invited to speak at such a prestigious gathering felt surreal. It was a testament not only to her professional achievements, but also to her ability to rise above adversity. As she prepared backstage, adjusting her microphone and smoothing out her dress, she couldn't help but think about how far she'd come since that fateful day when everything fell apart. When it was time for her speech, Emma walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Her heart raced as she scanned the audience, her eyes finally landing on Sarah seated near the front row. Sarah smiled warmly, giving her a subtle nod of encouragement. Taking a deep breath, Emma began speaking, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotion swirling inside her. "I'm here today because I made a mistake, a big one," she admitted without hesitation. "A mistake so costly that it cost me my job, my reputation, and nearly my self-worth. But more importantly, it affected someone else's life in ways I never intended." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "That person is sitting right here tonight, Sarah. And while I can never undo what happened, I want to thank her for teaching me one of the most valuable lessons of my life: forgiveness." Emma went on to share her story openly, recounting the events leading up to the torn passport, the aftermath, and her subsequent efforts to rebuild her career and character. She spoke candidly about the guilt and shame that consumed her in the early days after losing her job, describing how she hit rock bottom before finding the strength to start anew. Her vulnerability resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom nodded in understanding or wiped away tears. "Redemption isn't easy," Emma continued. "It requires owning your mistakes, learning from them, and committing to change, not just once, but every single day. It means choosing kindness over convenience, patience over haste, and accountability over excuses. Most of all, it means believing in yourself even when others doubt you, including yourself." As Emma concluded her speech, the room erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, cheering loudly as she stepped back from the podium. Overwhelmed by emotion, she glanced toward Sarah again, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." Sarah responded, with a heartfelt smile, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Their shared glance carried years of untold gratitude, understanding, and mutual respect. After the ceremony ended, guests gathered around Emma, congratulating her on her inspiring words and remarkable journey. Some shared their own struggles, thanking her for reminding them that second chances are possible. Others expressed admiration for her courage in confronting her past publicly. Amidst the sea of well-wishers, Sarah approached Emma, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You were incredible up there," Sarah said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "I hope you know how much your honesty means, not just to me, but to everyone who heard your story tonight." Emma hugged her back, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "Thank you," she replied earnestly. "If it weren't for your grace and forgiveness, I don't think I'd be standing here today. You gave me something priceless, the chance to grow and become a better version of myself." Their conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and reflection. They reminisced about the twists and turns their lives had taken since that chaotic day at the airport. Sarah revealed that the setback caused by the damaged passport had initially derailed her plans, but it ultimately pushed her to pursue new opportunities she might not have considered otherwise. The graduate program she mentioned in her earlier message turned out to be a pivotal chapter in her career, opening doors to exciting roles and international travel. For Emma, reconnecting with Sarah felt like closing a chapter she had long left unresolved. Though they had exchanged messages sporadically over the years, meeting face-to-face brought a sense of closure neither had anticipated. They agreed to stay in touch, promising to support each other through future challenges and celebrate milestones along the way. As the evening drew to a close, Emma reflected on the significance of the night. Winning awards and delivering speeches paled in comparison to the personal victories she had achieved, forgiving herself, earning back trust, and forging meaningful connections. She knew life wouldn't always be smooth sailing, but she felt equipped to handle whatever came next with grace and determination. The following morning, Emma woke up feeling lighter than she had in years. Sitting by her window with a cup of coffee, she watched the sunrise paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. A sense of calm washed over her as she thought about the road ahead. No longer burdened by guilt or fear, she embraced the idea of endless possibilities. Whether mentoring young flight attendants, volunteering at the community center, or simply lending a listening ear to someone in need, Emma vowed to continue spreading positivity wherever she went. Meanwhile, Sarah returned home inspired by the event and her reunion with Emma. She decided to pay forward the kindness she had received by mentoring aspiring professionals navigating similar hurdles. Through workshops and online platforms, she shared insights from her own experiences, encouraging others to persevere despite setbacks. Her message echoed Emma's. Challenges may shape us, but they don't define us. Growth comes from how we respond to adversity. Though their paths diverged once again, Emma and Sarah remained connected through shared values and mutual respect. Their bond served as a reminder that even in moments of conflict and misunderstanding, humanity has the power to heal and transform. Together they proved that redemption is possible when we choose accountability, empathy, and forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. In the end, their story became more than just a tale of regret and recovery. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the beauty of second chances, and the profound impact of compassion. For Emma and Sarah, the past no longer held them captive. It propelled them forward, shaping them into the people they were always meant to be. And as they looked toward the future, they did so with hope, gratitude, and unwavering faith in the goodness of life.